Welcome, December 8th, regular board meeting. First item is the adoption of our December 8th agenda. Our revised agenda.
Move the revised agenda.
Is there a second?
A second.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Miglerino, seconded by Mr. Hutchinson. Any discussion? I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll move on to the pledge, and I would like to introduce a recruiter for student services, and I hope I get this name right, Jolise.
You did beautiful.
Jolise Coddington Meadows. Welcome.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Moving on, if we would take a moment of silence, please. All right, moving on to item number 5, the minutes. Is there any discussion on the minutes from last month? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kay, is there a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Mr. Ramirez. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Mr. Donovan, current events.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder, as we all know, but just as a reminder, next week will be the last week of the semester. First half of the school year is over, and our students will be off. Our campuses will be closed for the 2-week winter break. So that's as of next Friday. So just as a reminder on that. And good things happening as students celebrate our CTSO activities. About 3 Saturdays ago, we had a really exciting car show at the Northwest campus. It was highly attended by the community. It was really fun. Had a lot of different varieties of activities and things. Our programs had booths set up to promote their programs and really nicely supported by the community. Some classic car shows, off-road vehicles, a few motorcycles, really a nice variety of things for people to see. So congratulations to the Northwest campus on that. And I would like to just comment on this one. In the Arizona Capital Times, December 3rd issue, there's an article that our colleague over in the East Valley, the East Valley Institute of Technology, is supporting and promoting a bill that would allow the career and technical school districts to begin to offer associate degrees. That's a huge statement. It's a great article if you'd like it, or you could certainly go to the Arizona Capital Times and see what's going on with that. We, West-MEC, have not particularly brought that to you or done anything with that discussion at this point. I also just wanted to point out that our chairman, Mr. Straka, was asked a few questions by the reporter, Kyra Haas, with the Capital Times, of which I thought he had some really good responses about the logistics and the effort to set up an associate degree program, and all the things that come with that would be quite something to tackle. So thank you for those responses, Mr. Straka. But just a new and interesting thing that's out there by one of our colleagues, that with now the community colleges have the authority to offer baccalaureate degrees, might it be time for CTEDs to be able to offer associate degrees? Just as a short piece, because it's not really an announcement, there would be some significant challenges with that, which we could discuss at some point in the future. Mr. Chairman, that's my update for tonight.
Well, thank you. I just, before I go on, I'll just add to that. The reporter called me, and when I talked to her, she wasn't even aware that it was explained to me as just simply college credits. And again, it was still the same thing. How do we get accredited to do something? And so good to see that that's coming along, and we'll see what happens.
A question for Mr. Donovan. I know at my district, while school is closed and students and teachers are gone, holidays is a great time for maintenance and the like to get in and do stuff. Is that happening in our district?
On a limited basis, yes, we do have a few projects planned, but for the most part, we're pretty much shut down over that, over this break this year. And the way the calendar falls, we're not done till the 16th, so it's pretty much holiday time, and there's a couple of small projects, but pretty much we're closed down.
Any other questions for current events? All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. Since I haven't heard if anybody wants anything pulled, so I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which was very light.
So move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. It is time to call for the public. Ms. Markham, I don't have any cards. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the board? Anyone from the public who would like to address the board? All right, not hearing that, we will move on to item number 9.
They're
They're the next.
They're the
Thanks.
next people.
Presenting.
They're presenting. I am guessing that is. I am guessing that is Audrey Stewart and the Northeast Campus on the HOSA presentation.
Good job.
We were excited.
No, we're excited to have you. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Superintendent Donovan, thank you for having us here today. We are here to discuss a little bit of the activities that we've been involved in with our CTSO. We are part of HOSA. Our program specifically is the Pharmacy Science program at the Northeast Campus. As he stated, my name is Audrey Stewart. This is my 7th year that I've been teaching here at West-MEC. And I want to introduce my group of leaders here with me today, and then we'll start into our presentation. You want to start, Marie?
Hello, my name is Marie, and I go to Shadow Mountain High School. And I'm the secretary, sorry.
Hi, I am Julietta. I am the vice president, and I go to Moon Valley High School.
I'm Linda. I go to Dysart High School, and I'm the parliamentarian.
I'm Karen Diaz. I go to Independence High School, and I am the reporter.
I am Hannah Olson. I go to Barry Goldwater High School, and I am the historian.
I'm Kaylee Thomas. I go to Liberty High School, and I am the treasurer.
Today, our presentation covers 4 areas. I have a little short introduction. We're going to talk about a little bit of the success we had at the end of last school year, so in the spring of 2001. And then our 2 topics we wanted to share with you today is how we've been using social media as a campaign to advertise what we've been doing, to share with the community, and what we've been doing as a campus to reach out to the community to not only get the community involved with us, but getting our students interacting with the community. So my busy screen here, just wanted to recognize some of our graduates from last year, since they didn't get to come and speak for themselves. As you can see, this involves a lot of the competitions that are going on at State Leadership Conference. That's the main focus that goes on in that spring event. Our success is pretty dominant in 3 areas, because that's the main focus of our CTE class, even though I've had representatives do well in other types of events. As you can see, pharmacology and pharmacy science are some that we do the highest ranking that we've ever had. And I wanted to share that since the start of the pharmacy science competition, which was in 2008, so it's not that old of its own competition, specifically our program has had the first place representative every single year. So we hope to continue that tradition, right ladies? That's what we're working on. We're pretty excited. We've started the process to prepare for competitions for this year, which we already have some that have qualified for the regional competitions, and which I have one here today now that I thought about it. And then there's a few events that are at a regional level, and then they go on to a state level, which is in April down in Tucson, Arizona. So we're looking forward to many of these same events and hopefully repeating and going to nationals this year, since these group of students worked very hard to place at state, and if you were aware, the international conference was moved online at the last minute, so that was pretty crushing for us. Pretty exciting. Also, all of these students I wanted to recognize, they have all passed their national exam for pharmacy technicians, so there is definitely a correlation for the students that do well in competitions and passing their national exam, and most of them are either working or going to school or both. As a chapter, and that's sort of where we're leading today, so you can hear from the students, they're way more interesting than I am. Last year we did receive what's called a silver level chapter recognition, and we are on track this year to get the highest level, which is a gold, which is why we're here today. We also have a national award-winning newsletter that we've had for the last 3 years. We can hope to continue that this year as well. And then Arizona HOSA has a lot of individual recognition that we represent very well. Last year I had 22 of the entry levels, which is a bronze levels, and 5 that are silver. And this year we're already on track to have the majority of our students meeting the bronze level, and we already have some that are gold and higher. And we have all the way until March to achieve those goals. So pretty exciting. And so I just wanted to give credit to those students from last year that graduated, and now I would like to turn it over to hear about what's going on this semester with some of our current students.
Which button is it?
It's a little.
Fantastic. All right, so hello again, I'm the historian, and I, along with my associates, use social media to communicate with others and kind of showcase our accomplishments. And 3 events that we've had is a Donate Life campaign, a St. Mary's Food Bank Service Project, and Operation Christmas Child.
So this year HOSA's service project is Donate Life. Donate Life is a nonprofit organization where people can sign up to become organ donors. And I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to spread awareness to our community about becoming an organ donor. And every October they have competition about who can get the most signups, and unfortunately we did not get the most, but I'm glad that we did get some people to sign up and some people aware that they can sign up to be an organ donor.
Next, we participated in Operation Christmas Child, where we help families and kids in need by packing boxes with like a wow item, which is a bigger item like a ball or a jump rope, and then some hygiene products like bar soap and toothbrushes. And we got a total of 21 boxes. Our highest was our classmate Jeremiah, who had 12 boxes, and I made 5 boxes.
So St. Mary's Food Bank is, during Veterans Day on our day off, we took the opportunity to go together and serve our community on our day off. So this proves that we can have fun and do some bonding as a class while still serving our community. So Linda will go in more detail about what we did at St. Mary's Food Bank.
So 2 of us were in charge of pushing the carts to make sure that all traffic with the carts are being managed. Then we supplied water, produce, beverages, milk, cheese, canned goods, and other items into the carts to be donated to people in need.
Alright, so next we have our school service, and this is going to be our on-campus involvement. This can include our HOSA leaderships, which will be our fall leadership that we did just recently go to. That will be explained a little more. We have our college opportunities, so we've taken 2 college field trips, which is going to be GCC and NAU collaboration, and then GCU. We have our hands-on labs that we use as a class to gain experience and overall show our knowledge as our pharmacy science. And then we have our open houses that will outreach to our community to try and recruit people.
Alright, so one opportunity that we did have this year was to go to HOSA Fall Leadership. First off, it was just incredible to be surrounded by people who were not only leaders, but who were also involved with HOSA. So it's really pretty nice to have that kind of opportunity. We also had the opportunity to learn several different skills, such as me and Julietta here, we learned the basics of suturing. not something that you would learn every day, but with being involved in the healthcare industry, it's pretty cool. We also had several other opportunities, such as learning like tips like how to get into medical school, and just a bunch of really cool things. Yeah.
Oh, labs. Oh, I was waiting. So for labs, we have only 3 pictures here, but we do a multitude of labs. We're always doing something every single day. We're really getting our hands in there and really trying to become that pharmacy technician that we all strive to be. So for our top left image, we have compounding. So we're taking a powder for any of our medications and putting it inside a liquid to be dispensed for people that may have trouble like swallowing a pill, or just it may work better that way. For our top right, we have our basic pharmacy technician pill dispensary. So here we have one of our classmates, Purdy, counting the medications into a bottle and dispensing the correct amount. I think for this lab it was 30, so we had to count in multitudes of 5 to get that amount to be dispensed to our patient. The bottom image is what happens inside our body when a pill, capsule, tablet is being dissolved. Right here we have pretty sure it's a tablet that is being dissolved. That's why there's that powder at the bottom. And so our eccentric coating around the tablet that keeps it from digesting like too early is being dissolved, and we just see that whole process unfold into our eyes.
Okay, so this was what Kaylee was talking about. We took the field trip to GCU with the NAU collaboration, and we learned the associate's degree that GCC offers into the transition for a bachelor's for health and wellness, nutrition, and and then the other image was the GCU field trip that we actually got to see a real cadaver, and we were all just standing around the table like, what? Like this was a real person with all the body parts still inside of them. So we just, just got to see that. They started taking it apart, and they started like pulling out the heart, pulling out all these different body parts, and we're just like, oh, what? So yeah, that was a pretty cool experience. Also a recruitment opportunity. We got to see the beautiful campus, all the amazing people that work there, the teachers. It was awesome.
All right, so one of my favorite activities, one of my favorite activities that we've had so far is our West-MEC open house, and even though there was a bunch of opportunities for people who came in to go see different professions like medical assisting or construction, I don't know, every kind of thing we have at West-MEC. When people came to our little area of the building, they were able to see, oh, this is how you count medication. Did you even know that you could crush Smarties into a powder and put it into a bottle? No, you didn't, but it's fun. And then we had other people who were in their PPE, personal protective equipment, full-blown under the hood, where they were showing them, where they were showing them how IV work is done. And this was a really good way to just introduce people who may not even know about our program to be like, hey, this is something fun and something really useful for your life. And it was awesome to see, like, even my siblings came there. There were a bunch of people who were interested in pharmacy that came there to learn more, and we were able to provide that to them through hands-on experience. Even though it wasn't any real medication, it was still an awesome time where we were able to have fun and kind of just show what we had available.
Is that it? All right. That's it. Perfect. So thank you for listening to us, and we're open for any questions that you may have about our program, our CTSO, or anything else these lovely ladies would like to share.
Ms. Wiley?
Of course I've got a question. Okay, are you all working?
Yes.
Do you mind just running down where you work?
I work at a burger shop right now, I work at a burger kind of place right now. It's like a privately owned business, so it's pretty small. They're pretty flexible, like with the schedule, especially with how much time that West-MEC takes up. But it's pretty great. So.
Wow.
I personally work at Panera, so I have a part-time job over the weekends.
I don't work.
That's okay.
I work at Chick-fil-A.
I am a hostess at Salt Tacos and Tequila down in Westgate.
I'm a cashier and a pizza maker at Chart Pizzeria. That's like Northern Peoria, like Pleasant, Happy Valley area.
Wow.
I work at West-MEC.
Thankfully.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I got a follow-up question to Ms. Wiley. where do you want to work? Start there, if you would, please.
So far, probably a compounding pharmacy, or at least that's what I've been exposed to where I think it's pretty cool so far. And Ms. Stewart has been helping me find opportunities that go along with the compounding technician to find jobs with that. So,
My personal goal when I grow up, I want to be a pharmacist. So this program is really helping me gain knowledge in the world of pharmacy to prepare me for college. And it's going to be a lot of schooling, and I'm glad that I have the opportunity to work as a pharmacy technician to help pay my way through college while still gaining experience in the field that I want to work in.
While I'm in school, I'm planning to go into healthcare administration. So while I'm doing that, I'm planning on doing that online so that I could have a full-time job as a pharmacy technician in the hospital or in Humana.
I would love to work at a Banner Thunderbird hospital pharmacy. Like, I don't know why, but it just speaks to me, and I would love to work there.
So coming into this program, I just had no idea what I wanted to do. But now that we're getting into like sterile products and all of that, I would really love to work at a hospital, administering IV bags and all of that kinds of stuff.
Mine's a little weird. I like the gross things, so I actually came from a biomedical program beforehand, and I really love forensics. But I also know, like, in like the forensics area, you need to know like medication reactions, and I know pharmacy would have helped me with that. So I'm going to use this as a pharmacy technician job to pay for my schooling so I can get that forensic job and deal with all the gross stuff that nobody else wants to do.
Well, thank you. You know, I know it takes a lot to come and speak before the governing board. That's one of the things I've loved about being on the board. Young people coming in and talking to us. Just telling us what you're doing, what do you want to do. In 7 years, thank you for being with us. And thanks for all of your input tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, Mr. Ramirez had a question,
I
Jim.
wanted to make a comment and ask a question. Thank you for sharing your future plans. You all have very clear vision. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was in high school. I just knew I wanted to get out. I just wanted to get out of Yuma and come to Tempe or Phoenix, you know. But I'm curious about the tablets that you guys used to do the compounding and all that, the counting. What are they made out of? Are they sugar tablets? Smarties.
The ones that we crushed, the one that was in the photo where we were analyzing how it dissolves within a stomach, so we were actually putting it in vinegar. The weakest a weak acid obviously can't bring in a strong acid, but they're real tablets that I order. So it's an ibuprofen, to be honest, which is interesting because it has that. You can see at the bottom there, it has that brown coating to it, so you can actually see how that coating is removed, obviously much slower than it would in your stomach, and then you see the white powder as it dissolves, and then that's what ends up getting absorbed. So that one we did use some real medicine for it. But usually for experimentation, everything is fake.
Did you guys learn about different coatings and if they have different rates of dissolution in water?
We had a whole unit on different routes of administration, all of that. We learned tablets, troches, which are like Hall's like cough drops.
What are they?
Troches.
Chokies?
Troches.
Oh, troches.
Yeah.
It's like troches. That's a bad name for a
There's
tablet.
different types of medication. We just
Okay.
it's fun.
I have a question for Mrs. Stewart. How many sections of Farm Tech do you have?
So we have two at two different campuses. So mine is a 1 o'clock and a 4 o'clock, and it's a 1-year program, so they're identical to one another.
So how do you, you're not all in the same class, right? So how do you manage CTSO when they all disappear? Like, it's not, so I teach at a school and I can have an after-school thing, right? And so the kids come after school from the various classes. You can't. So how do you work that? What do you do?
So we have representatives from both classes when it comes to officers. So there's a mix of my first and second hour here today. And the classes will have their meetings, same agenda. The officers will write an agenda together. They'll have the same meeting for each class, so all students get to participate. And all the planning goes on outside of that. The officers meet on their own time. They've been using Zoom and text and whatever else they use to communicate. So the officers will meet outside on their own time, whatever works since it's both classes. And then, like I said, each class gets to participate in their own meeting so all members can attend rather than meeting outside of class time.
Yeah, thanks for managing all of that. whoever is in charge of HOSA must not want one of the contests to actually happen. Because one of the contest names was medical math, and that just sounds like two terrible words that just shouldn't be together. So anyway, congratulations for winning at that.
They're in the thick of medical math right now, so they kind of are getting a taste of what that test is. That test is no joke, for sure. It's not that bad.
Thanks for being here.
Calculator.
Mr. Donovan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and governing board members. Ms. Audrey, Ms. Stewart, would you, I know that we have a lot of discussion often at this level and within the staff and leadership about internships and those kinds of things. Would you take a couple of minutes and explain the challenges specifically to this program and providing these students internships, a clinical experience, if you will, and the real challenge that specifically this program is probably one of our most difficult for? So could you take a couple minutes, because I know we have some very specific interest in that area, and you guys are a challenge with that.
Correct. So yes, the work-based learning was very challenging for us, and it's all depending on the state board. So Arizona Board of Pharmacy has a lot of strict rules when it comes to who can step foot in a pharmacy, which I guess is good in the long run, but it does require students, they have to be 18 years old, and they have to be a high school graduate. So that's pretty tough to do with a high school program. So, and it is state by state. It's really rough when I go to national conferences, and there was a woman from South Carolina, and she had a high school program, and she was bragging about her externs and job shadowing, and it's very tough. But without those two items met, they will not let you have a license to even step foot in a pharmacy. So there's no possibility for job shadowing, let alone some type of clinical rotation. To even just stand there and stare at people filling medicine, they won't even allow that. So it's very difficult to get the real world, so we try to do a lot of replications in the actual pharmacy. Everything from, I have some virtual pharmacies where they are seen through the eyes of a technician and they have to make decisions on the computers. You know, are they filling this particular item? Do they call the doctor? Do they talk to the pharmacist? So that does get some real life interactions, but getting us into the actual pharmacy is, well, I'm gonna say, as of right now, impossible.
And what's your background?
My background, so I've worked as a pharmacy technician since 2008, and my background's in chemistry is where my bachelor's is held, and then I have a master's in education as well. So I finished that last year, thanks to West-MEC. They helped that a little bit in partnership with American College of Education.
It's the fun part of the job.
Is there a unit on reading terrible handwriting?
Yeah. Yes. So funny thing you should say that. We did. So if you've experienced, there was a little gap in learning at the lower elementary levels when it came to cursive handwriting. And I knew when that happened, I said, oh gosh, I cannot wait till they get to my level and they do not know major cursive writing, and it's a variety, especially capital letters. And yeah, a lot of my examples are from doctors' handwriting, and even the handwriting itself is good, but if they don't know the cursive, so that's been a challenge. I don't know what a cursive Z looks like, and so they've battled that a little bit, but now I've experienced that. I have students that don't read cursive writing, and so now besides the bad handwriting, we've had to add that to the mix as well. So it's pretty challenging. But I did just challenge them a couple weeks ago with, I did make it extra credit, so that way they weren't too stressed out. But you should have seen the looks on their faces when they're like, no, that is a W. And you're like, well, if you didn't cross the T and you kept the R, and it could be a T and an R. And so, yeah, so it was interesting to see them analyzing that and the struggle that comes with handwriting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Incredibly interesting, incredibly, all of you.
Great, very good. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our number 10, our land purchase, Dr. Isom.
Thank you, Board Chair Straka, members of West-MEC Governing Board. As you know, we've been talking about this purchase for several months. The Long family has been intimately tied to not only the development, the start of West-MEC, but the ongoing development of West-MEC. most recently as exhibited by the purchase of the 30 acres that will be our southeast campus. With the boom that we're seeing in the West Valley, we've had a couple cities come in and present over the last few months. I believe Buckeye came in, the city of Surprise, as well as Peoria, three of the fastest growing cities in the West Valley. To give you some idea of the future demand, not only has it been realized in the state that Arizona's economic development is tied to workforce development, but that workforce development is West-MEC and what we do. We're seeing a great deal of interest and support from the legislature, as well as interest from parents, and seeing these opportunities continue. And in planning for the future and planning for potential future campuses, we have to be forward-looking and thinking to the future. And thinking about land out in the growth areas of Buckeye, potentially Peoria, we also have to first look at opportunities close to our existing campuses. The Longs had made an offer for West-MEC to consider these 30 acres for future growth and expansion at our central campus, which is our flagship campus, and the price that they're offering seems reasonable. I did make a few notes for the board that I'd like to walk through and then answer any questions that you may have. First, I wanted to point out that there are 2 pages in the document that you received that were added as a result of a clerical error. And the title, you'll see it's under Exhibit 2, Permitted Exceptions. There's a 2-page document from PTA, Premier Title Agency. I want to go on record as saying those 2 pages should be omitted from consideration. Go ahead, sir.
I was trying to figure out, what does QT have to do with this purchase? I was trying to figure that out.
It doesn't. That is a deal that the Longs have going on over in Indian School and 99th Avenue. And as our attorney and their attorney were interacting, it got stuck in there and transposed, and I apologize for not catching it before giving it to Ms. Markham. So, no, we're not purchasing a QT with this.
Well, I thought we were going to get rent from a QT land lease.
But anyway, just a couple notes I wanted to point out. This is a purchase sale agreement that was drafted by Gus Law, this board's attorney, Gus Law, in consultation with the John F. Long family revocable trust attorney. The proposed purchase price is $3.50 a square foot. That equates to about $152,000 per acre. And if we in fact pursue the total acreage, it would be $4,573,800 for the 30 acres. The first section, just kind of walking through, I won't walk through every section, but the way the PSA is laid out, it's the definition section followed by general contract provisions, which prescribe the legal process for conveyance of the land. The third addresses the earnest money and escrow. Just a note on that if the board would approve this PSA tonight, we would be submitting our first portion of the earnest money in the amount of $50,000. We started with the letter of intent that the board approved back in October. We started a 90-day study period, which 90 days would take us through approximately January 21st. 4 days after the end of that study period, we'll be scheduled to submit $200,000 in earnest, the additional $200,000 in earnest money for a total of $250,000 in earnest. Section 4 dealt with representation and warranties. The fifth identifies pre-closing activities such as title reports, surveys. For this deal, we will again hire David Lyons to do the valuation. If you recall, he did the evaluation on the 30 acres that would be the southeast campus. The amount of the appraisal would be close to that amount. They charge $1,500 for that appraisal, and the price should be at that or slightly increased, but certainly south of $2,000. It will be up to us how in-depth we want to go during the study period, as we currently have no plans for construction, but seek to secure this property for future expansion at that location. I did endeavor to contact the city of Glendale to ask them to provide preliminary information in the form of a signed questionnaire. If you recall, when we were selecting sites for the Southeast Campus, I sent those out to interested communities, and they provided us invaluable information that would disclose any issues that might arise when it came time to develop this property. So the questionnaire addressed such issues like general site information. It is currently zoned as a planned area of development, and that is the Copper Wing development, planned area of development. And it is zoned to allow expansion of our facility at that location. Transportation, there are no known issues with the transportation corridors. If you travel Glendale Avenue, you'll see that the city, as well as MAG, have invested a considerable amount of money to improve that corridor and make all the property along Glendale Avenue in that area more accessible and increasing the property values. There is direct access to the property currently from Glen Harbor Boulevard, which is the current, which is at the light and is currently used to access our current property, our current central campus. Utilities, APS provides power there, and there's currently capacity for about 2 megawatts there today, and there's a scheduled project in 2022 that will provide more than sufficient capacity at the site. In comparison, our Southwest Campus, we use 2 3,000 amp transformers for a total of about 6,000 amps, and we are told by the contractor at Southwest that there's plenty of capacity, and there will be plenty of capacity in that area for this development. Southwest Gas has a high-pressure gas line in Glendale Avenue, and currently there's a 2-inch service line along Glen Harbor. There's treated water service provided by the city of Glendale, and there's currently a 12-inch line in Glen Harbor. Sewer is also provided by the city at the location, and they currently have a 12-inch sewer line at the site with current capacity of about 29.2 MGD and potential capacity of 290 MGD, which is sufficient. Environmental, they have access to, they've given us access to a phase 1 environmental that has been provided to Maricopa County, and if this is approved, we will have a review of that environmental study, but a cursory review shows that there's no issues in that area. Restrictions, there's no noise restrictions in the area, and there is a height restriction imposed by the city for the current zoning of about 56 feet, which is substantial and sufficient. And there are power lines along the western border of the property. Regarding currently air quality status, there are no known issues, and regarding other improvements, when the property is improved, there'll be a requirement of half-street improvements along Glen Harbor and minor improvements along Glendale Avenue based on the plans or our proposed construction. The site is deemed shovel-ready by the city. All utilities are available. Traffic signal is currently updated, and we would need to install a fire line to the site. And of course, we have to manage the stormwater runoff to protect the neighboring properties. So that's the general information I received from the city of Glendale, and I'm glad to answer any general questions, but we seek this board's authorization to enter the PSA and proceed with securing that property for future development.
Dr. Rush?
Yes, sir.
Did we happen to look up what the market price is on that acreage?
No.
I know it's going to be double,
Yes.
probably plus some change more than the buying price.
Yeah, it's a very marketable area, especially with the improvements that they've done in Glendale Avenue. When they first offered the acreage, we had a estimate of the property value in the area for the southeast campus, and this was considerably lower. To your point, when this is approved as part of our study period, we'll authorize the appraisal and get a true market value.
I wasn't sure if we did an early appraisal or anything like that.
That would be done during the due diligence here if this is approved.
Great, thanks.
Thank you for the question.
Mr. Miglorino?
Have the architects done any preliminary drawings on how we might use this property?
We have not. Again, we're trying to secure this for the future, and to my earlier point, it's really up to us what we want to spend now for preliminary development, but this project is certainly out of ways. If we don't secure it, I'm comfortable in saying that it will not be available in the future, but there are no architectural renderings or drawings. We haven't spent that money.
I'm all for purchasing the land. I just know how valuable that piece of property is, and you're right, I'm sure it's way below market.
I think,
But-
if I had to guess, probably 10 to 12 is what that would go for right now on the market.
Yeah, you're probably right. But my thought is, long after we're all gone to that happy hunting ground, when we turn it over to the architects, I would look at dual purpose. What do we want to use it for? And design it that way. But what might somebody else want to use it for 20, 40, 50 years down the pike? And can we design it with a post and pole? So it could be used for a warehouse because there is an airport there. Just when we're looking at and discussing with the architects, that we have some long-range thinking in there that would be a benefit to future boards.
Yeah, I think that in some of our preliminary discussion, those are certainly the thoughts of Superintendent Donovan when we were in the room with one of our architects thinking about this purchase. So I think the discussion so far have aligned with your concerns as well, or your thoughts and vision.
So the entrance would be off Glen Harbor. We wouldn't be allowed to have an entrance on Glendale, is that correct?
That's, Glendale wasn't definitive on that. A lot of it would depend on our design. If you think about our Northwest campus, we ended up looking at a pork chop over on Dysart Avenue. Once we got in and designed the area, if it was reasonable to do a pork chop, at least a one-way in, one-way out, heading east on Glendale Avenue, that's why they put that there may be some minor improvements. The half street on Glen Harbor, there may be some minor improvements along Glendale, depending on what our proposed design is.
Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I intend to support this because quite frankly, we'd be dumb not to. This is an insanely good deal. And I don't know how closely all of you follow real estate in the West Valley, but Long is unloading all of its property out here and shuffling it around. And opportunities like this in the future are going to be very few and very far between. And I may or may not support a future project on this land. This isn't me voicing my support for that, but for this land purchase, absolutely. This isn't a rocket scientist kind of decision for me.
I would add, I know I looked at a lot in the 67th Avenue and Happy Valley area, and it was 400,000 and up for 1 acre. So 30 acres, we're not going to find 30 acres in very many places that aren't out. So yeah, your 10 to 12 million is probably right on the money.
Mr. Chairman, in line with that, Mr. Hutchison, we need to look long range. We've had the presentations on what's going to happen with the time when each chip company goes in. Hundreds of thousands of homes going from 303 and 17 all the way to Bell Road. We're going to need property. We're going to need to put up schools. And far-reaching thinking tells us by now that land probably won't get cheaper in the future. So just something for the future we need to discuss as a board.
Just to clarify, where is the 4.5 million coming from? It's not bond, right? It's just our capital that we've saved, or?
Yes, Governing Board Chairman and Governing Board members. We did put a $5 million budget for land purchase this year and the capital expenditure, so it's coming out of the quote reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Do you want any more questions?
Nope.
Dr.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Thompson, just a quick question. So my understanding is all bonds, we have a 10% discretion on any bond funds that we have in terms of what we can do. So could any portion of the remaining bond monies be used for the purchase?
It can. We usually use that reserve for our FF&E, for our furniture, equipment, technology.
Okay.
And because we can.
Okay. Thank you.
But that would be up to the board.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Bay?
I move that we approve this as presented.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved, it's been seconded by Dr. Pingarelli and Mr. Miglerino. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Does this need to be
roll call? Oh, then Ms. Martin, would you take roll?
So second was by Pingarelli?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Hutchinson? Aye. Jim McMahon?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Kay?
Aye.
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 All right, it still passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Isom. All right. Ms. Thompson, your turn.
Governing Board members and Superintendent Donovan. Speaking of the future and the aging of our buildings, we are going to be starting some tenant improvements here in the next couple of years, and some of our painting projects and other things that will be happening. We are asking for an increase in our job order contracting. Job order contracting is just that. We are allowed by statute to go out and recruit contractors and construction companies for $1 million or less on a project. So statutorily, you can do that up to $1 million unless the board otherwise increases it. Because of the economy and rising prices, difficulty in getting equipment and supplies, prices have skyrocketed and projects are getting more and more expensive. So needless to say, $1 million today is not getting us where it would have gotten us 2 years ago. I hate to say that, but it's true. A lot of school districts are moving to $3 million on their job order contracting, and a lot of our co-ops are going to be changing their co-ops, which we participate in, to $3 million, like 1 GPA. And what a co-op is they go out and they do the legwork for us on a RFP or for contractors, and they will award so many contractors up to that $3 million. So boards across the state are increasing, or school districts are increasing their job order contracts from $1 million to $3 million. I am asking tonight that we increase ours to $2 million. I will stand for questions.
Sorry. So if we don't do this and we have a project that costs $1.5 million, what would the process be?
We would back up and start at ground zero with the intent of the veterinary program at Northeast Campus. We never thought it would be close to $1 million. It was coming in around 800, and it is just time to redo that building. They have outgrown it, and things need to be changed and updated, and it's going to come in over $1 million. So if we don't, then we stop the project and we go out for an RFP. If we don't increase, then almost all of our projects are now going to have to go out for RFPs or RFQs, a request for an official quote, and it will just slow everything down. And I do not see prices coming down, so they will just continue to get higher and higher, and our projects will be delayed, and our students won't reap the benefits.
So I have a couple questions. One is, so is this request to just increase the JOC in general, or is it specific to the Northeast
In general,
campus?
we have projects coming in the future. I did not mean to cut you off. I apologize.
No, so then I guess my other thought would be $1 million is still a lot of money to me.
It's a lot of money to me.
And to hear it's like this, but could we trigger something that would say, if something comes back over $1 million, regardless, even if it fits into the $2 million number, the board should be notified that a $1 million project has started? Because that just seems like, from advice and consent, the board should be aware of a $1 million project.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, we wouldn't, it sounds like we wouldn't know. And so then.
You should, I agree.
And so then that would be part of, I think, what I'd like to see. Then my other question would be about Northeast Campus. I am confused on what is the plan, because that's something I think I've asked for in the past, is how are we going to improve Northeast Campus and everything? And we were going to put it on this month's agenda, and I think we're back to January. How does this fit with the plan of Northeast Campus's future?
Thank you. We are currently upgrading the vet building, which would be changed if we don't approve this tonight, which is okay. We have plans for a new program, and that we have gone out for an RFQ, and I believe the committee met last week, and that proposal will come before you in January. And once that is approved, then we will start that process and do a GMP, just like we have with all of our other campuses, to build buildings, to build out the hangar, to get the parking lot built so that we can offer these new programs. If I would defer to Superintendent Donovan or Mr. Welch on some of the programs that they're.
I guess I'm just trying to understand that's I guess my disconnect. I don't know if anyone else from the board is. This is a $2 million project. How big is this next project? Do we know yet? Do we have an estimate?
My guess is probably low, but I'm guessing anywhere between $6 and $8 million.
So we're talking $10 million of improvement to Northeast Campus? And what is, so I guess I feel like I'm diverting here. I guess I'm confused on what is the general plan for Northeast Campus, because it seems like we're getting bits and pieces.
We started the vet about a year ago, assuming that it would be under $1 million, because that's where we needed to go. And we have since, I think with your direction and the board's desire, decided that we need to build out that campus and bring more students in. Is that a fair statement? So what we did was, the vet had already started. It already came down the road. We were already working on it, assuming it was going to be less than $1 million. And then it came in at a little higher. In the interim, we put everything else out for bid.
Mr. Chairman, I feel your frustration. We've got the cart in front of the horse. This was never intended to be the lead project. The other stuff has lagged for a couple of reasons. Next month, you're going to see the whole Shinola, the whole project, the campus improvement piece. This was an improvement to the vet building, which isn't new. It's not a new program. It's an improvement to the building. As Ms. Thompson said, this was never intended to necessarily attract a lot of attention. It's a tenant improvement to an existing building. But it's gotten in front of itself, and we need to get it moving. We didn't think that it was going to be $1 million. It would already be moving if it wasn't for tonight's meeting. Because of the timing, we were hoping to have already some things moving so that this was done. It was going to start during spring break. The major work would happen the day that students are done in May, and when they come back on August 2nd, 90% of this project is complete. It's just an in-house kind of thing. So I appreciate that, I'm really interested in this whole campus, and I'm seeing this little tiny thing over here. Next month, you're going to see the whole general campus plan for new programs, what we're doing with the hangar, what we're doing with the parking lot, what we're doing with a couple other lab areas, how we're changing building. to accommodate these new programs and those kinds of things. And it's already out. We did the RFQ, as Ms. Thompson said. We're going to be recommending a contractor, recommending an architect, and everybody sits down under a CMAR type environment, construction management at risk. If you guys approve this concept, then everything starts moving. That's a whole nother, so
then just,
two separate things going on.
So can you back me up one more time? So what are we doing for vet tech? Are we expanding it for more students, or are we just making it more modern?
Mr. Chair, the discussion you're heading into isn't on the agenda, and I'm afraid we're going to run into legal trouble if we start discussing improvements. That's not the agenda item.
So
the agenda item is our rules when it comes to.
It's related to the agenda item because that's the project we're trying to get approved for the CMR.
Please continue if you want, just a friendly heads up.
Thanks. Mr. Miglerino.
Along those lines, I'm confused. We've already have an RFQ in the committee, and we don't know anything about it. The 6 to 8 mil project, and we're going to bring that back to us and tell us what it is next month, and then we vote on something that's already been decided?
No. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry if we've led you to believe that nothing's been decided.
Nothing's been decided.
We believe that's sort of the monstrous size of what this big project's going to be. We don't know that. This is just some in-house ballparking. We know that there's a desire to do this big improvement to the Northeast campus. We need to move it forward by having a contractor and architect on board so that we can get serious about it. That's why you haven't seen anything. There's nothing serious about it yet.
But is it, going back to Mr. Schmidt, is it because of kids, because of programs, because of both, because of modernization?
Oh, are you talking about the big project or the vet project?
The vet project.
The vet project, I'm fine with. Matter of fact, $2 million, I've done a little bit of checking. Many districts are going to $3 million. And I have no problem with Mr. Straka's idea. When you're going over $1 million, let us know. But I've got no problem with amending that resolution to go up to $3 million on jock, because as a board, we can't do that. And in today's environment, I know $1 million is a lot of money. I get it. You know, I don't get that every month, but I'd like to. But I think we need to give them the latitude, but they need to keep us informed.
So is there a motion for a motion to approve at $2 million?
Yes.
Second. Motioned and second. Any more discussion?
I would like to see it 3. If there's no objection, I'm not going to change anything, except it gives them a little latitude. They don't have to come back to us.
I'm not interested in entertaining a vote for 3 in any way. Too high. I think 2 is too high. Yeah, construction costs and everything have gone up. They haven't doubled. So I don't intend to support this.
All right, so $2 million is on the floor. Ms. Markham, would you take roll vote?
Barbara made the motion.
And it was seconded by Mr. K.
Peter.
Nay.
Mr. Straka.
Yes.
Mr. K.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Nay. All right, thank you. It passes 5-2. Moving on. Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you.
For a very interesting and lively conversation on something that was probably mundane. Calendar of events, you can see all staff meeting, and it looks like we have stuff going back to in-person again. And then think tank on juvenile justice. Future agenda items. Anything the board would like to?
Something like Northeast Campus needs to be on that list.
Yeah, I think it is on the list for January, but Northeast Campus for January. For Mr. Ramirez's benefit, since this is only your second meeting, this is the time the board discusses things that have come up that we'd like to either plan next month or sometime in the next couple of months to throw out there and see if the staff can put something together.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Well, everyone's quiet. We'd be done in an hour if it wasn't for executive session. Moving on to item number 14, executive session. I would entertain a motion to move to executive session as prescribed by the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into an executive session as prescribed by IRS, for the purpose of discussion, consideration of the performance achievement of the goals, and including compensation for performance pay pursuant to blah, blah, blah. The board may also go into executive session to receive legal advice from the attorney for the district concerning the superintendent's evaluation and goals.
Second. Who was that seconded? Mr. Hutchinson. Mr. Hutchinson. All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. We will break for 5 minutes and then convene in the executive boardroom here with the superintendent, and then we'll kick them out for a bit, and then we'll bring them back. So if anyone wants to stick around, you're welcome to wait. The board is back, and I would entertain a motion to return to executive session.
Regular session.
Return from, no, return to regular session from executive. Is there a motion?
Move.
Mr.
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Kay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are back in regular session. Item number 16. I guess I reluctantly have to ask the board to consider Mr. Donovan's resignation. He is ready to leave West-MEC and move on to the...
Skip number 16.
That is number 16.
Nope.
Oh, whoops. No, you're right. Number 16, Superintendent Evaluation.
So we essentially need to repeat what you said in there.
Yeah, so I would entertain a motion that the superintendent has performed on his 4 goals and would be awarded 75% of his performance bonus.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Hutchinson. Is there a second by Dr. Pingarelli? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Does that one need to be a?
Oh, that doesn't need to be a voice vote, or it can be a voice vote, right?
I'm satisfied.
Voice vote is.
Oh, it's 7-0, so it's good. Now number 17, reluctantly, have asked the board to accept Mr. Donovan's resignation. He has served, as he pointed out, 21 years as superintendent. He's earned the next chapter. I would just take this moment to point out that when Mr. Donovan, he was the first West-MEC employee, he took this from a vision of really him and Mr. Long to what it is today. He's built 5 campuses, 2 successful bond programs. There's a lot. And so you might say he's going out on top, and what better way to go out? And so with that, I would entertain a motion to accept his resignation.
So motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hutchinson has made, is there a second?
I'll second it.
I know everybody's reluctant to do it, but Mr. Donovan's ready to move on. Any board members would like to say anything before I call for a vote?
I would. 21 years is a long time. We wouldn't be where we're at. We wouldn't have the programs we have. We wouldn't have the folks out there. I mean, he put that together. You think of all the kids that have a chance at a career. Maybe not the one they'll end up with, but listen to those young ladies tonight, what they're doing and what they want to do. That's what we're about. He did that. He brought it from what did you work out of, an office in a bank or something, in 21 years ago, and developed it in probably, without a doubt, one of the leading CTE schools in the country, not just Arizona. And the folks out there make it happen. And he had his hand in all that. Things don't happen without somebody like that leading it. Leadership is everything. It's everything. If you don't have somebody in charge running that ship, it might go a little bit west, it might go a little bit east, but you really want to go north. And so I just want to congratulate Mr. Donovan for all he's done for 21 years, for kids, number one, but also for the folks that sit here tonight and make every day happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Superintendent Donovan, thank you very much. And I would echo the comments that Mr. Miglerino made, but I want to tell the board that, and remind the board that a couple of months ago, Mr. Donovan and his staff hosted an event for constituents in my subdistrict at the Northwest campus. And it was a lot of constituents who didn't really know a lot about what CTE or West-MEC was, or really even had a favorable view of public education. And throughout the tour with his staff and through his discussion and his personal narrative before and afterwards, when I left that, I received phone calls and text messages from many of my constituents praising the work that West-MEC does, and really felt very comfortable at what the superintendent was doing in our district. And I think that, boards and superintendents sometimes disagree, but I want to say that I know Mr. Donovan has always advocated the very best for the students and for his employees, and I respect that, and I thank you. And in the face of all your recent personal issues and tragedies, God bless you, and I know there are good things ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Superintendent Donovan, I had the pleasure of knowing you for about 2 months, so brand new on the board, but just in the short while that I've been on the board and that I've known you, been very welcoming. The tours that we've had of the schools, of the campuses, I've seen how committed, how excited the students are, and the passage rates are amazing, very high, and you wouldn't have that success with students if you didn't have a great team, and you don't have a great team if you don't have a great leader. So it just shows to your the qualities as a leader, the time that you've been superintendent and involved with the schools. There's just been it's just amazing what you've been able to accomplish in that time. And so I thank you for being welcoming. Thank you for the work and the service that you've provided to our community and to the students especially.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez.
And I remember one time early on, you had trouble in school and you weren't going to go on to college and you didn't know where you were going to go. And your mother was getting a little upset. And here you are today. Beautiful.
In a nutshell. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? I think everybody's covered. I'll call for the question. All in favor of accepting his resignation, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 18. Again, thank you, Mr. Donovan.
Thank you.
As hard as it is to think about Mr. Donovan leaving, the next step is really to think about what's next for West-MEC and our next leader. What I think we need to look at is how do we recruit a superintendent? There are some companies out there. We do need to do a search of I believe there's candidates within West-MEC. I believe there's candidates outside of West-MEC. So what I'd like to propose is a 5-person subcommittee that would interview candidates. This committee would consist of me, one other board member, a classified staff person, a teacher, and 1 member of the community. We would then interview candidates and pass the top 3 to the board to interview. Not only would the full board interview, but we would set up specific people within West-MEC to also interview the candidates for 30 minutes. So it would be about a 4-hour interview for each candidate of the 3. The West-MEC people that interview them would then pass their notes back to the board, and the board would then select a candidate based on their notes and our interview. To help facilitate that, we would probably need to hire a search company or a recruitment company. One of them that is available is ASBA. They would charge about $16,000. That's not the first one I would go to. There are a couple others out there, but the search cost.
Chair, before we get into discussing consultation companies, can we go back to your subcommittee, or is this for discussion?
So this is just to discuss.
I don't have an updated agenda, so I don't know. If it's
No, this is just for discussion. This is what I'm thinking. I would like the board's thoughts, and then we would finalize things next month.
You want to finish your thought?
Yeah, so then, we'll look for what kind of search committee it would cost. An external search committee is essentially what we would use, and those are going to run somewhere for a small district like West-MEC of $15,000 to $25,000. So I'll look for a couple and bring those back to the board to review some options next month.
Can you go over the structure for the subcommittee you spoke of?
Oh, sure.
So there's the board president, who else?
So it would be, myself, I would establish it as a subcommittee. Actually, technically, we could probably do that tonight if we wanted, because it doesn't require a vote. I don't believe. Myself, one other board member, if one other board member would like to volunteer, otherwise we'd draft one. And then my intent would be to send an email out to West-MEC staff asking for volunteers and why they'd like to serve. And then we would need to select a classified person and a teacher from West-MEC, and then a member from the public on, I would assume, like one of our advisory councils or something. And that would give us 5 people to do initial interviews, to pass 3 back to the full board.
I understand what you're saying. A subcommittee is typically comprised of members of the board. You take a 3-member or a 4-member or a 3-member subcommittee.
So then it's really not a subcommittee. It would be
I have a problem with 2 staff, 1 member of the public. We're already representing the public. We don't need the public to come in. We have 2 staff members, 1 member of the public, and only 2 board members on the committee. And they send us the 3 applicants. The board should control what applicants we finally interview. Not staff members and not members of the public.
How do we come up with the makeup of the committee?
So that's what I'm proposing now. That's what is open for discussion.
Okay, it's not a requirement.
No. Historically, other districts have done similar things. They have members of the public, classified staff, teachers, board members. Those are really where you get, that way all the stakeholders are represented, but no one stakeholder group. Otherwise, if you have 3 board members, then essentially the board controls the process.
Which is the intent. The board is supposed to control the process.
And the board has the final vote, so they control it in that way. So
the final vote of 3 candidates proposed by unelected people. What about the rejected candidates that never got to even be seen by the other 5 members of the board?
Well, we could say if the board wants to interview any additional candidates, we could add them to the mix from the interview notes or something, if that's what you would like to do. If that's what you're suggesting.
I would propose an alternate proposal of a subcommittee made up of only board members, at least a 3-member subcommittee, that reviews applications and gives recommendations for interviews, but the entirety of the board should be able to review every application. That's transparent and honest.
Ms. Wiley?
Can we ask Mr. Donovan how they've
Mr.
done it?
Mr. Donovan, how have...
Is there a process that kind of has been used, like EVIT or other?
When Sally left EVIT, what was their process?
Stay alive.
Theirs was a mess.
I really don't have enough information to answer the EVIT question appropriately.
Or any, so other districts?
I'll provide some clarity.
I was just going to ask Peter then.
So my wife has gone through this process twice on the Peoria Unified District. Let me go backwards. In the last superintendent they've hired, which is Dr. Reynolds, the final step of the process was to have 3 candidates, okay? And those candidates were interviewed by many of the stakeholders, and feedback was given back to the board. Prior to that, now I'm moving more to the beginning of the process, it was more the board was in control. The board hired either ASBA, they hired another firm for Dr. Reynolds, in which all the applicants were given to the board, and then the search committee, they made recommendations to the board based on the criteria that the board established that it wanted for a superintendent. And then the board said, well, these are the 3 finalists, and then obviously then it went to the community. So that's how they did it last time. You can ask Representative Pingarelli if you want more, or Dr. Reynolds. I don't know if she's here. No, she's not.
How did they do it the first time? Was it
The first time they went through ASBA. The last search firm they used was McPherson, and I think they were out of Oklahoma. They were actually much more expensive than ASBA. The first time they did it, when Dr. Santorelli left, they used ASBA, and ASBA they did the search, they brought recommendations to the board, and then the board went through all of those recommendations, all board members, and then the board narrowed it down to 3 candidates, and then the 3 candidates gave presentations to the community, the teachers, the stakeholders got to meet them, and then all of that input was collated and provided back to the board, and then of course the board goes and does its thing.
Mr. Straka, I just got to say something about this. I think Mr. Donovan and I could sit around and talk about all the superintendents in the area that have been selected. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them by committee. And I always remember the definition somebody gave me of a zebra. It's a horse designed by a committee. And you just need to be very, very, getting a person of Mr. Donovan's caliber to run the whole ship is a big, big deal. Mr. Hutchins is not completely wrong about it's the board responsibility. I want to see it come back.
It's the highest compliment I've ever gotten from you.
You know, it's today. Put it in the book. I want to bang it. But the thing that I found most helpful over the years, and I know you all get tired of the old age of my stories, but one of the things that was very helpful is that the board members, several of the board members on the final candidates went to that person's district and checked it out. Checked out the teachers, checked out the students, checked out the administration. That is, now, do we want a trip to Cactus Gulch, New Mexico? Probably not. I don't know where the person might come from. But I just want to put, in my eyes, more important than even Mr. Hutchinson's, we need the 3 finalists to look at what they've done, and be hands-on at the place. period. So, the people you get, make sure they know, from my perspective, I feel that's a necessary component of a search.
Mr. Chair. Yep. Completely agree, by the way. Here's the things that are important to me. That every candidate that meets qualifications is viewed by board members, not trimmed down or eliminated before board members get to see their application. And I want to make sure that any narrowing of applicants that is done by elected officials here in West-MEC. And the reason that is if we hire a bad one, which some people have, we don't get to say a year or 2 years later, oh, that was the staff told us to do that, it's their fault. The buck stops here. Any narrowing of applicants should be done by us, and we should put our names to it.
That's fair enough. So maybe, would you be satisfied, maybe then what I hear you say, the board would select the candidates to be interviewed by the 5-member committee, and then we would take those notes and the board would select the final 3 candidates to go into the final round.
That would be perfectly fine with me, yeah.
I'm okay.
Sounds like a lot of work, but we can do a lot of work.
We got to do a lot of work. It's that important.
If we do a lot of work, we'll get a great candidate.
I was being facetious.
Yeah.
Don't take that
But
seriously.
that's it. It's like, I would rather do a lot of work now because we'll get a great candidate because we want to build on where Mr. Donovan's leaving. And we might select the right person if we don't do all this work, but I'd rather, like you said, put the work in and we'll be much happier.
And they've got to be the right person for this environment, not where they were. They can be, so we have to really look deep.
And as this process gets going, if there's a lot of moving pieces, we can meet telephonically, we can do whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
None of us live far from here.
Mr. Chair, I would agree with both Mr. Miglerino and Mr. Hutchinson. I think, and as I've seen in the past, yes, we're
all agreeing tonight.
We're all agreeing tonight. It really was the board that kind of narrowed down. They did review in each of those scenarios that I discussed. It was the board that narrowed down the candidates. And then the rest of the process.
So to clarify, we're all going to see all the applications. Then we're going to somehow get together and rate them or whatever.
I would rephrase that to, we're all going to have access to every application. If you don't choose to read every application.
Yeah. We're all going to get the applications. We're going to have some kind of voting something, some way we're going to whittle it down. Then we're going to have this 5-member committee that's still, as you suggested.
Is everyone good with that?
And I'm volunteering if no one else will.
I think it's unnecessary, but we can do it. It's
and
not
then,
harmful.
well, but the thing, you got to do an interview. That's the problem. And interviews take time, and you got to get scheduling and people together. And we have a hard time all getting together. We can do virtual stuff, but getting together is hard for all of us. Those 5 people then interview the 3, and we also have
it would be more than that. That first round, you might interview 20 people, however many criteria the whole board says we want to interview, and then you interview, let's say it's 20 people.
Oh, so we're going to see all the applicants, whittle it down to some interview panel that might not be 3?
And so that first interview panel, let's say it's 20 people. They interview all 20 people, they give the notes back to the board, and then the board would whittle it down to 3, and then it would go to the second round. It would be more than one round of interviews.
Okay.
Well, then Ms. Markham must like him.
Well, so I would, but I'm serious. Ms. Markham is the superintendent's administrative assistant. I would expect her to spend part of an interview, want to be the one that interviews in that final round of the 3 to provide feedback to the board. Is everyone good with that.
This is my first time going through the process, so I'm
It's
not.
our first time going through
My
the
worry
process.
is that by not bringing in a consulting company, we're handicapping ourselves, but I've never
No,
dealt
we
with
would
one.
bring in, we would still bring in a consulting company to.
They're the ones gonna collect.
They'll collect, and what I would envision them is maybe they do some kind of screening interview where.
Minimum qualifications.
Minimum qualifications. Hey, you're gonna spend 15 or 30 minutes with each candidate that meets this criteria, and then say, hey, this is my score, and based on that and the resume, then the board would say, hey, these are people to interview, then move on to the next round and say, okay, this is what came out of the interview panel. These are the three we're gonna move forward with the larger group.
I'm satisfied with that.
And so, as an example, when I worked at the state, we had an engineer programmer position, and one guy applied, and he delivered pizzas for Pizza Hut. It's like, everyone has a dream, but they also need a job, as we said, minimum qualifications. So that person who doesn't meet the minimum qualifications would then just probably fall off, as they would come from the search committee and say, didn't meet the criteria. And if the board wanted, we still could interview them, but, probably not going to.
Is there an organization that has a list of all of the JTEDs around the nation?
That's what the search committee would do.
Probably the easiest access for the bulk of that information will be through the National Association of Career and Technical Education. But they would only know of organizations, school districts that historically belong and participate. I mean, there could be, but I would doubt that there would be anybody of major consideration that doesn't participate in some
There's
way.
a national association. Right. And you said, okay, the word will get out.
And so
there's an opening here.
And whatever our search committee is, they would put that out there. West-MEC would pay the fees for that, but they would be involved in getting that advertising out in the right places.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Wiley, I get announcements on a regular basis that have absolutely no relevance to me, but some of these search firms, they just have access to huge amounts of data and superintendent lists, and those things are always moving out there.
Remember, old superintendents never die, they just show up somewhere else.
Mr. Chairman, everything just described here was my experience as an elected official in the 3 times I went through this process while I was on the Peoria Unified School District Governing Board.
Okay. All right, well, that's really, if there's no. Yes.
May I make a suggestion?
We're listening.
You need to decide what qualifications you want in a superintendent and send them to Mr. Straka so he could make a list for you to review, to add, subtract. You can't just go out blindly. They need to meet certain qualifications.
And he'll need to feed that to whoever you hired to do it.
Right.
So they'll
Well,
take
it's not going to
charge.
be me hiring, we're going to hire some.
Correct.
Right, and typically, Mr. Chair, if what Ms. Markham said is very good, because typically if you hire a search firm, the first thing they'll ask the board is, what do you want? Besides the minimum qualifications, what does each board member desire? Is there consensus within the board? Because the superintendent is our one employee. And so each of us has different perspectives, some differences, but many similar perspectives too. So.
All right. Well, anything else anyone would like to say? Otherwise, we can move to the next agenda item. All right. Well, hearing nothing else, Ms. Markham, if you would just send a reminder to the board to send that information to me tomorrow. I'd entertain item number 19. It's moved by Mr. Hutchison. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Ramirez. We will stand adjourned till January of 22.